Sure, gang. I hope you guys are doing good, and I hope the preparations are coming in well. My name is Garba Sitole, and I'm a student from the University of Witwatersrand. You guys know that by now because I'm sure you've subscribed. So I'm studying accounting science, and you know, I'm doing what I gotta do to help you guys pass your economics, your stats, as well as your law, right? So let's get right into today's video. So it's been quite long since I did a video covering economics content. I did videos on microeconomics, and in this semester I'm hoping to find more time to do videos on macroeconomics. So we are doing test 1, semester 1, 2023 test. And then I'm going to just be answering the questions for you guys and explaining why the answers are what they are. So if you haven't subscribed, please click that subscribe button. Don't forget to comment, like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Right? So the first question says, suppose that the nominal GDP is, so I already did the questions beforehand, so just to save time, suppose that nominal GDP is 5,000 billion in year 1 and 5,888 billion in year 2. Suppose further that CPI is 110 in year 2. Which of the following options is correct in year 1 if year 1 is the base year? So what I want you guys to understand is this. Okay, I think I should. Okay, fine. What I want you guys to understand is what nominal GDP means. So what nominal GDP means is that you have GDP at the current prices. So if you go to the mall and you look for a pair of shoes and you find that they are 2K, those are current prices. That's what the price is right now, right? We don't care about inflation. We don't care about anything else. Just looking at the price now, right? So that's what nominal GDP is. It's telling you the amount that you have of, like, so you're going to multiply your quantity and the prices at current prices. So it's GDP that has not yet been adjusted for inflation. So meaning that in the nominal GDP, I'm going to have two effects, and this is very important. I'm going to have the effect of output changes as well as the effect of price level changes, right? So my options say output, it talks about output, and it talks about no change in output. So to know to know the portion of output change on my nominal GDP, I need to know the inflation parts of the change, right? So hence we are given the CPI. Remember how we calculate inflation? It says CPI of the previous year, CPI of this year minus the CPI of the old year over the old CPI. So it's new minus old over old. Okay, so let's do that. So the first thing that you need to do is to calculate the percentage change in the nominal GDP, right? So we want to know how the nominal GDP changed. So it's new minus old over old times 100, right? So we are told that in year 2, our nominal GDP is 5,885 minus 5,000 over 5,000 because it's old. So the change in our nominal GDP is 17.7%, right? This 17.7% has both the impact of, so in this 17.7%, I have X, which is my inflation rates, as well as Y, which is my output change. So this is a combination of my output, either increase or decrease from last year, as well as the inflation in this 17.7%. So in order to separate between the inflation parts as well as the output parts, I now need to calculate the inflation rates because I'm given the CPI. So you are told that the CPI in year 2 is 110. And you are told that if year 1 is the base year, what is a base year? A base year is a reference year. So when we're saying the base year is year 1, it means that my nominal, remember how we calculate CPI? It's gonna be what we have right now at current prices over the base year, which is basically us calculating nominal over real GDP. So meaning that I'm going to have 100 over 100 times 100, which is 1. So what I'm trying to get at is that the base year CPI is always 100, always and always and always. So if year 1 is the base year, it means that I have 100 at year 1. So to calculate the inflation rates, it's going to be new minus old over old times 100, which is 10%. So if I subtract 10% from this, I should get 7.7%, right? So meaning that 10% in this 17.7%, I have 10%, which is the inflation rate, as well as 7.7, which is the output change. If you were given real GDP, it would actually show you the output change, because real GDP means nominal GDP less inflation. So you've already subtracted the inflation, and you are left with what? You are left with output change. So I hope you guys understand. Let's go on to number 2. Number 2 says GDP can be measured by the total market value of final goods and services produced in the economy. So that is basically the definition of what GDP is. It is the total market value of final goods, not intermediate goods, but final goods and services produced in the economy. So our answer is D. Number 3 says, use the following table to answer the following question below. So they give you a table that you're given compensation, net interest, rental income, dividends, proprietors income, indirect taxes, subsidies, and depreciation. And they say using the income approach, GDP is. So whenever you are using the income approach, you add inflows and you subtract outflows. And remember, you are moving from net and you are trying to get to gross. And that should tell you that, remember, when you're moving from gross to net, you subtract depreciation. However, when you're moving from net to gross, you add depreciation, right? So there are 2 things I want you to know about the income approach. It is, first things first, it is that we are moving from net to gross, right? So remember what net means: after deductions, gross before deductions. So if I'm moving from net, it means that I've already subtracted the depreciation. So to move from net to gross, I need to add the depreciation, right? So taxes are always added and subsidies are always subtracted, right? And you always add inflows and you subtract outflows. Okay, let's get right into it. So it says compensation of employees. That is an inflow, because households are actually getting money, right? Less interest, because interest is an outflow. It is a cost of borrowing. Plus in rental income is an inflow. Less dividends. Dividends are an outflow, right? Plus proprietors income, right? I said you always add taxes, so it's plus 400. This is because you're trying to move from the factor cost to the market cost, right? So less subsidies plus 510. So the answer is 6,220, which is what we have here, right? So yes, let's get to the next question. I'm trying to make sure that I save time. So the 4th question says, which one of the following is considered to be an unemployed person using the narrow definition of unemployment? So we have 2 definitions of unemployment, and we always, let me not say always, but economically we use the narrow definition of unemployment, right? So the narrow definition of unemployment looks at like unemployed people, except for the discouraged workers, right? So you must be unemployed. Okay, first of all, you must be willing, you must be actively looking for work, able to work, and actually willing to work, right? And you must be a person who, if not working, they must be wanting to start a business in the next 4 weeks from when what is it called? Like when they are counting the number of people the survey was done, right? So yes, that's the narrow definition of unemployment. We do not include discouraged workers. Discouraged workers are those people who look for work for so much time that they felt they are now discouraged to look for any work, so they're just sitting at home. So another thing that I have to mention is that discouraged workers do not form part of our labor force, right? They do not form part of economically active participants. They are not economically active. Okay, let's look at, so using the narrow definition, obviously we are not going to calculate discouraged workers. We are going to calculate based on the definition, right, that I just gave you. But if they had said a broader definition, then it means that you need to add discouraged workers. There's a question that we are going to do in the next question that is very, that the concept that I'm like saying is very important in, right? So the answer for this is a person who is not working but is planning to start a business in the next 4 weeks preceding the survey interview. So that is the correct answer, right? So number 5 says a sudden unexpected deflation will most likely result in. So whenever you are looking at deflation, you always consider the impact of deflation on your borrowers as well as the impact of deflation on your lenders. So think about it. Remember, in the market of loanable funds, households are what are the lenders, right? Households are the lenders and firms are the borrowers, because remember, households give their savings. By savings, they are actually being the supply of loans, of loanable funds, right? And what are firms? Firms are people who go and get like the loans in order to invest in their businesses. So they are the borrowers. So firms are the demand and households are the supply, right? So think about it. What is deflation? When prices are low, right? Meaning that with the money that you have, you can buy more, right? So as a householder, if that's even a word, but do you think that when prices are low, is it going to positively affect households or is it going to negatively affect them? Generally speaking, it's going to positively affect them because they can now buy more with the things that they have. So deflation is going to positively affect the lenders and is going to negatively affect the borrowers. But what about inflation? Let's think about it. If the prices are high, how is it going to affect households? Households are going to be negatively affected. What are households? Households are lenders. So lenders are negatively affected by inflation, right? Okay. And when you're negatively affected by something, obviously you are going to do less of that thing. And if you're positively affected by it, you're going to do more of that thing. So let us look at our options. Our option says workers. So a sudden unexpected deflation will most likely result in workers being worse off due to lower nominal wages earned. We're not talking about any wages. We are talking about the market of loanable funds specifically. B says lenders increasing their purchasing power from the loan repayment. So that is the correct answer because remember, deflation positively affects households. And what are households? They are lenders. So it's increasing their purchasing power because with the amount that they have now, they can buy more. Purchasing power means how much can you buy more with the money that you have, right? So I'm so sorry, I have a sore throat, so it's kind of like hard to speak. So yeah. Okay, let's get to the next question. Number 6 says use the following information to answer questions 6 and 7. Total population. We are given values, right? Numbers. We're given people younger than 16 but older than 65. People aged 16 to 65 who are not part of the labor force, discouraged, work seekers, employed and unemployed, right? And we are asked to calculate the participation rates. So what is the participation rates? It is the labor force over the labor force plus people in the labor force, not in the labor force, but are between 16 and 65. So basically the participation rate is what? The labor force over the working age population or the economically active population, right? So let us calculate that. So we are told that the labor force, what is the labor force? People who are employed and unemployed. So I'm going to add the number of employed people as well as the number of the unemployed people. The number of employed people is 10,670 plus the number of unemployed people, which is this, over the labor force, which is this plus this, right? Plus the number of people that are not in the labor force but are between the ages of 16 and 65, because that's what we call economically active or the working age population, right? So, and then when you do that, you times by 100, this is the answer that you get. Okay. Let's get to the next question. The next question says, what is the unemployment rate according to the broad definition? Remember when I talked about the narrow definition as well as the broad definition. Under the broad definition, we actually consider discouraged workers. So meaning that I need to, what is the narrow definition or the narrow rates, right? The narrow unemployment formula. It's going to be the number of people unemployed over the workforce or over the labor force without considering the discouraged workers. So if they're asking for the broad one, it means that I need to include discouraged workers. So I'm going to say number of unemployed people, right? Not rates, number of unemployed people, right? Plus the number of discouraged workers over the labor force plus discouraged workers. So basically what I'm changing here as compared to the narrow definition is that I'm adding discouraged workers in my numerator as well as in my denominator. So that's what you do, right? So you will see the values in the table. I'll stick the photos in the video so that you guys see what I'm talking about. The answer that you get when you insert this in your calculator is 50.1. So let's get to number 8. Number 8 says, use the following information to answer question 8 and 9. So you're given a table, it has quantity and prices for 2013, quantity and price for 2014. They say the year 13 is a reference year and the base period, meaning the CPI in that year is going to be 100. So how do I calculate CPI in general? The CPI is, as I said before, it is going to be the prices of goods and services right now multiplied by their quantity over the prices of goods and services in the base year multiplied by their quantity in the base year. So the question is asking me for the cost of the CPI basket in 2013. So that means I have to calculate. So they are asking for the cost of the CPI basket in 2013. So it's going to be what? It's going to be current prices over base prices. So in 2013, the first price is 40 times 50. And then I say plus, 50 times 60 plus 10 times 100, right? And I get 6,000. Oh, I'm so sorry. We're not looking for the CP. I don't know why I just did that. Oh, okay. Wait. We're not looking for the CPI rates, right? We're looking for the CPI cost in particular. So it's gonna be 6,000, which is B. Then after that, they actually asked for the CPI for 2014, not the cost, but the CPI, right? Index. It's called an index, like that number where you see 110, 120, 114. That's an index. When they ask for the cost, they are actually asking you to multiply the quantity times the price. So when they are asking for the index, right, they never put the term cost. They will just say calculate the CPI for 2014 or whatever year. And how do I calculate CPI? I said current prices over base year prices. They are asking for 2014. So what am I going to do? I'm going to multiply the prices and the quantities of 2014 divided by the quantities of 2014 times the prices of my base year, right? So it's going to be, remember, what is the cost of my base year? 6,000, I already calculated it here. So it's over 6,000, but here I need to calculate my quantities of 2014 as well as their prices for 2014, right? So if you do that, you will get 81.4. Okay, we are almost there. Question 10 says, let me just see. Okay, the video is not that long. I'm actually proud of myself for this. Question 10 says, to measure the change in the standard of living, it is best to use the growth rate. Another thing that I want you guys to remember when you go into that test is that to calculate growth rates, it's always new minus old over old, right? So never forget that. But here they are asking about the best measure to look at the standard of living. So when you are looking at economic rates, when you are looking at economic growth, you always consider real GDP. However, when you're looking at the standards of living, you consider the real GDP per capita, per person, per head, right? So the answer for this is C. Number 11 says the production function is a relationship between the amount of labor employed and it is, okay, so the production function will always tell us the relationship between the labor employed as well as the maximum quantity of real GDP that can be produced. So you guys should know that. So the answer for this one is D. Okay, I feel like I'm rushing through the questions, and I'm sorry for that. A decrease in the number of officially recognized holidays in a country results in a decrease in the number of officially recognized holidays. So if you have less holidays being recognized, it means that you will need to work more hours, right? Because if there are more holidays, it means you're working less. So if there are less holidays, it means you're working more. Meaning that if there was a decrease in those hours, let's just say this was your demand, this was your supply, it means that you are going to have to work more. So your supply is going to shift outward, right? And whenever there's a change in supply, right, remember we're talking about the labor market now. We're not talking about the loanable funds markets. We're talking about the labor markets. So whenever there's a change in the supply of labor, it causes movements along the production function. However, when there are shifts, what did I just say? When there are shifts in the supply curve, it always causes movements along the production function. However, when there are shifts in the demand curve of labor market, it causes a shift in the production function. I'm going to repeat that. Whenever you have a shift in the supply curve, it will always cause a shift. It will always cause a movement along the production function. However, if you have a shift in the demand curve in particular, it's going to cause a complete shift in the production function. So yes. So the answer for this is D. Question 13, we are given a production function. So that's how it looks like. Given a production function, and the question says, what is most likely to have caused a movement from D to E? What did I say? What causes a movement along the PF? It's going to be a shift in the supply curve. So now we need to look at a reason that is going to shift the supply curve. And if it's moving from D to E, it means that there was a decrease, right? So meaning that I need to look for an inward shift in the supply curve. So an increase in the number of working age population. No, an increase in the number of working age South Africans immigrating to other countries. If people are leaving the country and going to other countries, it means that I'm going to have less supply. So that is correct, right? The second one says a decrease in the stock of capital after initial disaster that affects demand, not supply. Eskom's load shedding results in grid failure and all businesses without backup are forced to shut down. That is gonna cause demand. Because remember, the demand of labor comes from where? From the firms, not the supply of labor comes from where? From households. A and B are correct. We just proved that only A is correct. So for number 13, A is the correct answer. And then for number 14, it says that which of the following statements suggest an upward shift in the aggregate production function, right? So remember what causes a shift in the production function? I said that it's the demand curve, right? So if there was an upward shift, it means that the demand curve shifted to the right, meaning that firms are demanding more of labor, right? And they are willing to pay more. So there are cases, or there are like things that are going to make firms want to pay more. One of them is labor productivity. Another thing is if they expect profits to increase. So whenever those two things occur, remember that firms are going to want to demand more of labor. So the correct answer is A, because they said by providing faster computers, firms increase labor productivity. So that's going to cause an upward shift in the aggregate demand. Question 15 says, use the following information to answer the question below. We're given the base year real GDP as well as the GDP for 2022 and 2023. We asked to calculate the growth rate of real GDP for 2023. Remember what I said about growth rate? It's new minus old over old. So you look at the real GDP in rands for the year you are in, subtract the previous year over the previous year's GDP times 100. If you do that, you get that the answer is 12.5. Hence, the answer is B. I feel like the test for people who are repeating is so much easier than the one we are going to write. But anyways, suppose that there is a persistently high inflation over the next few years. Before I even go further, remember I mentioned that inflation positively affects who? It positively affects the borrowers, the firms, because it's going to negatively affect the households, which are the lenders. So assume that there are no changes in the nominal interest rate. Which one of the following statements is correct? So now I need to look at something that's going to affect firms because they are the borrowers, right? So remember, if there's high inflation, what is the nominal interest rate? Nominal interest rate is the rate that has not yet been adjusted for inflation. So if it did not change, it means that the real nominal interest rate changed, right? So if the real nominal interest rate changed and there was inflation, okay, let me make an example so that you guys understand what I'm saying. So let's just say that there was inflation, right? So I'm saying that real is nominal minus inflation. So if there was no change here, it means that there was inflation because it increased, right? So inflation might have increased to a point. Okay, so if inflation increases, it means that this amount is going to be reduced. So if this was 50 and the inflation was 5%, right? Okay, if this was 50 and the inflation was 5, it means that the real was 45, right? However, if they are saying it didn't change, so it's still 50, but the inflation rate has increased. So let's just say you still have 50, but now you have an inflation rate of 10, meaning that I now have 40 as my real interest rates. So whenever your interest rates are low, what happens to demand? Remember that in the loanable funds, in the market of loanable funds, our price is actually our real interest rates, right? And this is the quantity of loanable funds. Remember the law of demand and supply. The higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. But the lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded. So if there was a decrease in the real interest rate, what our demand is going to do? They are going to demand more. But what our demand is in the market of loanable funds, those are our firms, right? Because remember, households provide their savings. They are the suppliers. Firms are gonna want investment, and how are they gonna find that investment in capital? They are going to go borrow funds. So the correct answer is firms increase the quantity demanded for loanable funds. So that is question 16 for you. Question 17 says, refer to the diagram below to answer the following question. Given real interest rate in loanable funds, this is what I just drew here. It says, if household wealth falls, if your wealth falls, right? Okay, let's just think about it. If you have money and you are wealthy, wealthy is the accumulation of your income, right? So if you are wealthy, you are not going to have the incentives to save. So if you are wealthy, it means that the supply of your savings is going to be low. However, if you are less wealthy, you are going to have the incentives to save because you don't know what's going to happen in the future for you, right? So they are saying if household wealth falls, what is going to happen? I'm going to want to save more because now I'm uncertain about what's going to happen in the future, right? It's the same thing as normal goods. The more you earn, the less of inferior goods you buy. But the less you earn, the more of inferior goods you buy. So when you are wealthy, you don't have the incentives to save. But when you are less wealthy, now you have more incentives to save. So if household wealth falls, what is going to happen to supply? It's going to increase because I'm going to want to save more. But nothing's going to happen to demand, meaning that I'm going to have a movement from A to D. Hence, my answer is C. Question 18 says, if GDP is 15,000 with a positive trade balance, what is a positive trade balance? It means that my exports were greater than my imports, right? And a government expenditure of 1.1, household saving of 1.7, investment of 1.4, and they are asking for taxation. So I want you guys to know two formulas. This is the GDP formula, the consumption approach, right? So we have three approaches of GDP: expenditure approach, income approach, and production approach. So in the expenditure approach, you have Y, which is income, is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M, right? But what is Y? What is my income? My income is going to be spread between my consumption plus my savings plus my taxes. So if you equate these two equations, you're gonna have this equation is equal to this equation, and then those that can cancel, they cancel. So consumption and consumption will actually they will cancel. I'm left with investment plus government plus x minus m is equal to s is equal to t. I'm looking for t, so I take the s to the other side. So I have I plus g plus x minus m minus s is equal to t. What is my investment given as 1.4 plus what is my government spending given as 1.1? What is my, they said a positive trade balance. Positive trade balance means I have x minus m. If they said negative trade balance, it means I have m minus x, right? So plus 800 minus my savings, which are 1.7, and the answer is 1.6. Hence, it is A and not the other answers. 2 more questions to go. The supply curve for loanable funds will shift to the right if, so they are saying the supply will increase if what? If you win lotto, you are not going to have the incentive to save, because you're not thinking about saving, you're thinking about spending the money, right? So the first one is out. The second one says the value of your investment decreases due to a financial crisis. If you are going through a financial crisis as a household, that means you're going to have the incentive to save, right? So the supply will increase, it will shift to the right. So tick for the second option. The third one says you are worried about your job security. You have the incentive to save because things are not going well for you, right? So I and triple I are correct. So the correct answer is C. I wrote C, right? Yes, it's C. Last answer, last question. Which of the following transactions will be counted as part of this GDP's year? The price of Vodacom shares? No. Anything that has to do with shares is not counted. Reason being that when you're selling shares, it's not an increase in GDP. It's just movement of ownership. So there's no new production of goods and services or anything like that. And shares are intangible things, right? So the first one is incorrect. B says the value of all unemployment benefits to be paid to unemployed workers. No. Transfer payments and unemployment benefits are not counted as part of GDP. I repeat, transfer payments are things like social grants, etc. They are not counted as part of our GDP. Number 3 says buying a 3-month-old car from your uncle. Second-hand goods are not counted as part of GDP. So that is false as well. So the answer for this one is none of the above, which is D. So there you are, guys. I hope this helped a lot to explain why the memo was saying what it was saying. Good luck for Tuesday. I think we're writing on Tuesday. Okay, I know. We are writing on Tuesday. So good luck. I hope you guys did well in the paper. And I hope this helped. Please, guys, I'm legit like begging you guys. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so. Please subscribe. Please click that subscribe button. Please engage in the comments, ask questions, ask further questions, ask for clarification. And another thing, I do tutoring sessions. They are 150 per 2-hour session. So if you do need a session, please don't hesitate to DM me. And if you do have my WhatsApp number, you can send me a text and then we can organize a session for you. I tutor stats, economics, stats and economics, yes. So good luck, guys. Bye.